The rain had been falling for hours by the time Samantha pulled up to the Airbnb. The house was nestled deep in the woods, miles from the nearest town. It was the kind of place that looked picturesque in photos, a charming rustic cabin surrounded by towering pines. But in person, under the gray, stormy sky, it felt different. The windows seemed to stare at her like hollow eyes, and the porch creaked ominously as she stepped onto it. She shook off the unease, telling herself it was just the weather making her jumpy. The host, Greg, had been friendly in their messages. He'd even left a note on the kitchen counter. "Welcome, Samantha. Make yourself at home. The woods are beautiful but can be unpredictable. Stay safe." She'd smiled at the time, thinking it was just a quirky warning. Now, as she stood in the dimly lit kitchen, the note felt more foreboding than welcoming. The first night was quiet, save for the rain and the occasional creak of the old house. Samantha spent the evening unpacking and settling in. She noticed little things: a locked door in the hallway, a faint smell of mildew in the bathroom, and a strange scratching sound coming from the walls. She told herself it was just the house settling, or maybe an animal in the attic. But as the night deepened, the scratching grew louder, more deliberate. It sounded like it was moving. She froze, her tea cooling in her hands, and listened. The sound stopped. She exhaled, chiding herself for being jumpy, and went to bed. The next morning, the sun broke through the clouds, and the woods looked less intimidating. Samantha decided to explore the area, hoping to clear her head. She followed a narrow trail behind the house, the air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. The woods were eerily quiet, no birds chirping, no rustling of leaves, just silence. She walked for about 20 minutes before she stumbled upon something that made her blood run cold, a small, makeshift shed hidden among the trees. The door was slightly ajar, and inside she saw tools, ropes, and a stack of Polaroid photos. Her stomach churned as she picked one up. It was a picture of a woman, bound and gagged, her eyes wide with terror. Samantha dropped the photo and backed away, her heart pounding. She turned to run, but froze when she heard a twig snap behind her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said. She spun around to see Greg, the host, standing a few feet away. He was smiling, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I didn't expect you to find this place so soon," he said, stepping closer. Samantha's mind raced. She forced a smile, trying to play it cool. "Oh, I was just exploring. This is quite the collection you have here." Greg chuckled, but it was a cold, hollow sound. "I'm glad you like it. You'll be part of it soon enough." Before she could react, he lunged at her. Samantha screamed and bolted, crashing through the underbrush. Branches clawed at her face and arms, but she didn't stop. She could hear Greg behind her, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. She didn't look back. She ran until her lungs burned, finally stumbling back to the house. She slammed the door shut and locked it, her hands trembling. She grabbed her phone to call for help, but there was no signal. The power was out again, and the house was plunged into darkness. She heard Greg's voice outside. "You can't stay in there forever, Samantha!" Panic set in as she searched for a way out. The windows were too high to jump from, and the doors were the only exits. She remembered the locked door in the hallway. Desperate, she grabbed a fire poker from the fireplace and smashed the lock. The door creaked open to reveal a narrow staircase leading down to a basement. The air was damp and cold, and the smell of mildew was overwhelming. She descended slowly, her heart pounding in her ears. The basement was dimly lit by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. What she saw made her stomach turn: chains bolted to the wall, a blood-stained mattress, and more Polaroid photos pinned to a corkboard. Her photo was already there, circled in red. She heard the front door creak open upstairs. Greg was inside the house. She had to hide. She spotted a small closet in the corner and squeezed inside, pulling the door shut just as footsteps echoed down the stairs. She held her breath, clutching the fire poker tightly. Greg's voice was soft, almost sing-song. "Samantha, I know you're down here. You can't hide from me." She heard him moving around, his footsteps getting closer. She pressed her hand to her mouth to stifle a sob. The closet door rattled as he tested the handle. "Found you," he whispered. In a burst of adrenaline, she kicked the door open, catching him off guard. She swung the fire poker with all her strength, hitting him in the side of the head. He staggered back, and she bolted up the stairs. She didn't stop to see if he was following. She ran out the front door and into the woods, the rain soaking her within seconds. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she had to get away. The woods seemed endless, the trees closing in around her. She tripped over a root and fell, her ankle twisting painfully. She scrambled to her feet, but it was too late. Greg emerged from the shadows, his face bleeding, his eyes wild. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said, grabbing her by the arm. She screamed, kicking and thrashing, but he was too strong. He dragged her back toward the house, her cries swallowed by the storm. Just as they reached the porch, a car's headlights cut through the darkness. Greg froze, his grip tightening. A man stepped out of the car holding a flashlight. "Everything okay here?" he called out. Samantha seized the moment, wrenching herself free and running toward the man. "Help me, he's trying to kill me," she screamed. Greg hesitated, then turned and disappeared into the woods. The man, a local named Tom, helped Samantha into his car and called the police. As they waited, Samantha broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. The police arrived and searched the house, finding the basement and the shed. Greg was nowhere to be found. They assured Samantha they would catch him, but she knew he was still out there, watching, waiting. Weeks later, Samantha tried to move on, but the nightmares wouldn't stop. She moved to a new city, changed her number, and tried to forget. One night, as she was unpacking a box, she found something that made her blood run cold. A Polaroid photo of herself, taken the night she escaped. On the back, in familiar handwriting, it read, "You can't hide from me." If you enjoyed this spine-chilling tale of survival and terror, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story. Remember, the world can be a beautiful place, but it's also home to shadows we can't always see. Stay aware, stay safe, and trust your instincts, because sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that could happen to anyone. Until next time, keep the lights on and sleep with one eye open.